our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition from the Daily Debate. In today's edition, we are going to cover multiple topics. We'll start with the runoff of the Senate elections, which started with the Egyptian expatriates abroad, and we'll be shedding light about how smooth and the participation of the Egyptian expatriates for the runoff of the voting. That would be one of the topics of our discussion, and we'll be shedding light on the latest developments in the Gaza Strip in light of the recent attacks by the Israeli military against the Palestinian civilians, and that was increasing since the past 24 hours and led to many fatalities. That would be the topic for our debate for tonight, and we'll start with this news from the National Election Authority that said that voting abroad on the second day of the Senate election runoffs went smoothly with no problems or obstacles. The remarks were made at the authority's executive manager, Councillor Ahmed bin Dari, addressed a press conference from the NEA's Central Operation Room, which is connected to the polling station at the Egyptian embassies and consulates abroad. Councillor bin Dari asserted that he has been following up on the voting process via video conference. The runoff vote is taking place at 136 polling stations located at Egyptian missions in 117 countries worldwide over 2 days. Voting inside Egypt will be conducted on August 27th and 28th following the vote abroad. The runoff election is being held among 10 candidates vying for 5 seats in the governorates of El-Gharbiyya, Bani Suif, Luxor, El-Ismailiyya and Al-Wadi Al-Jadid. And to shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by our dear guest, Dr. Mongy Badr, international and economic relations expert and member of the Egyptian Assembly at the United Nations. Dr. Badr, good evening, sir.
Good evening for you and your viewers. How are you?
How are you, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure and the honor.
Dr. Badr, the runoff for the Senate elections for the Egyptian expats is taking place at 136 polling stations located at the Egyptian missions in 117 countries worldwide. Sir, how the election is running smoothly in the runoff in these 117 countries?
As you mentioned, Madam Mahi, that overseas runoff election for Egyptian expatriates were conducted smoothly across 117 countries and 126 polling stations in Egyptian embassies and consulates. The process followed the same framework established during the first round of voting, with little adjustment to reflect the smaller scale of the runoff phase.
Of course.
About the 2 days runoff took place without any incident. Egyptian embassies and the consulate coordinated very closely to or with the National Election Authority to ensure that procedures were followed, ballot boxes were secured, and the participation was facilitated for eligible voted abroad.
Sir, how do you compare the rerun of the elections to the first overseas polling infrastructure?
Yeah, a very valid point. The runoff used the same infrastructure or the same procedures as the first round, including a polling station inside diplomatic mission. However, it informed viewer constituencies and the seats. As you mentioned in your introduction, it's around 5 governors, making the process more easier to manage compared to the first overseas round. And also, I wanted to add something, Madam Mahi, about constituencies and the seats at stake. The runoff applied only to constituents where no candidate won the required majority in first round, while the number of seats contested was limit the process remained important to guarantee full parliamentary representation.
Yes. Sir, the runoff for the Senate election in Egypt will be taking place on the 27th and 28th of August, with only, as you have kindly mentioned, limited number of governorates witnessing the runoff. What's your expectation for the participation in the runoff in Egypt?
In fact, the voter turnout, this turnout among Egyptians abroad in the runoff was lower than in the first round. It's a common trend, by the way. It's not strange. It's a common trend. As a viewer, voters are directly connected to the constituencies in question. Nevertheless, the National Election Authority emphasized that the participation reflected the commitment of Egyptians abroad to the electoral process. Also, if you allow me, I want to add something or another point relating logistic and oversight. To prepare for the runoff, National Election Authority supplied embassies with ballot guidelines and the training for the staff. Embassies abroad arrange polling stations, ensure the ballot security, and they set up central operation room to monitor the process in real time. Coordination with NEA in Cairo was constant, ensuring transparency and security.
Indeed. Dr. Mongy Badr, our international and economic relations expert and member of the Egyptian Assembly at the United Nations. Thank you so much, sir, for your precious input. Always a pleasure. And moving on to our file for debate for tonight, which is the recent development in the Gaza Strip and the Egyptian role, which is not negotiable regarding that very important crisis in Gaza. And Egypt is ongoing, its effort is ongoing non-stop to mediate the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, which was accepted actually by Hamas, and till now no response was provided from the Israeli side, and the Egyptian efforts are still ongoing for reaching a ceasefire. And indeed, Egypt is exerting its effort to enter the humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, and more about this in the following story.
The eruption of the latest conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, Egypt has assumed a central role in efforts to de-escalate tensions, broker ceasefires, and coordinate humanitarian assistance. As a long-standing regional power with direct borders with Gaza and a history of mediating between Israel and Palestinian factions, Egypt continues to pursue a complex diplomatic strategy, balancing security interests, humanitarian concerns, and its position as a regional peace broker. Egypt's involvement in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is rooted in its historical and geopolitical position. Cairo has maintained diplomatic channels with both Israel and various Palestinian factions, including Hamas and Fatah. This unique positioning allows Cairo to serve as a credible mediator during conflicts. Since the outbreak of Israeli war in October 2023, Egypt has intensified its diplomatic efforts on multiple fronts, and its intelligence and diplomatic envoys have been engaged in shuttle diplomacy, holding parallel talks with Israeli officials, Hamas representatives, and international stakeholders, including United States, Qatar, the United Nations, and the European Union. Cairo has consistently pushed for a ceasefire, arguing that a prolonged war would not only exacerbate civilian suffering in Gaza, but also risk regional destabilization. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati have made repeated calls for an immediate cessation of hostilities and resumption of political process leading to a two-state solution, emphasizing that military operations cannot provide a lasting solution. Cairo has hosted several rounds of indirect talks between Hamas and Israel, which have sought to establish conditions for temporary humanitarian truces, the exchange of prisoners and hostages, and the eventual framework for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Despite significant obstacles, Egypt's sustained engagement has prevented further deterioration and created diplomatic openings for potential de-escalation. Egypt's mediation is conducted in close coordination with regional and international actors, Egypt, Qatar, and the United States, from a trilateral diplomatic track aimed at brokering ceasefires and humanitarian corridors. Egypt's role in this trio is essential due to its geographic proximity and ability to engage Hamas, with whom Western actors have limited direct communication. Egypt has also maintained open communication lines with United Nations, hosting delegations from the UN Relief and Works Agency and the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs to facilitate aid delivery.